Well, hello YouTube, it's me Fortmaster, and welcome back to another reaction, and this one is the insane history of the Warrior Cats series. Now, this wasn't a request by anybody. This was one of those videos I saw, in my suggestion feed. And, well, I've heard of the Warrior Cats series before. I've watched other, videos where it's mentioned in passing, and from what I've heard, it is really weird. Now, of course, the people who have, talked about this, they've always talked about it, as like one of those things that they read as kids. I did not have that luxury. When it comes to reading it, when I was a kid, the only really thing I ever had was, if you want to talk about serialized stories, it was very much just Harry Potter. No, yeah, that's it. It was just Harry Potter. Other than that, I didn't really read that much, serialized stuff. So, I mean, I've heard a fair bit, mostly about how this series is really weird, but also really cool. So, I mean, I kind of want to see what all the hype is about. So, yeah, here we are. The insane history of the Warrior Cats series, done by Exits Examined. And, yeah, we should probably get into this then. So yeah, of course, as always, original video is linked in the description if you haven't seen it for some reason. Corner video will lead to my Let's Play of the day, and yeah, with that out of the way, let's get this thing started then, shall we?
In the early 2000s, it's safe to say that we were spoiled when it came to fantasy series. I mean, we're talking about absolute cultural giants like Harry Potter and The Lord of the Rings. But you know what those series didn't have enough of? Well, cats, of course. And if at the time you wanted something a little more edgy, something that not all those normies were into, you'd have to shop around a bit.
Yeah, that's the thing. I can never have a cat. I'm allergic, both cats and dogs. Though, actually, more so cats. Because, I know that, times I've been around dogs, I'll get, stuffed up and I feel like I have to claw my eyes out. But with cats, the feeling is, multiplied by 100. I am so much worse with cats than I am dogs.
And if you were a kid, you might walk into your library or bookstore, and then the answer would be staring right back at you, quite literally, when you saw these book covers with these weird close-up pictures of cat faces and wondered, what on earth is that?
Warriors? That's what the series was called. Oh, Warrior Cats, never mind. Sorry, I just when I just see the word warriors, I just think of that one clip where it's warriors, come out and play.
Well, it's Warrior Cats, the 20-plus-year-old franchise powered by maybe the single most large and passionate fan base of all time.
What, 20-plus years? Jeez, okay. That's... How long has the series been on for? The first arc? Oh, so these are all different arcs. Oh, okay. Jeez, okay, this story's just been going on forever. Wow.
Complete with all the drama and chaotic noise that comes with it. Now, it's kind of...
I mean, that's just sort of, how it works, isn't it? I mean, the worst part of any online fandom is the fact you have to share it with other people.
Incredible the staying power of this series, which at first glance is just about cats in a forest, but this was way, way, way more than that, and way darker too. Imagine a proto Game of Thrones, but with cats. But all of this and more made it absolutely addicting for all those edgy kids in school, and
So we're going to be getting, feudal, court politics, but with forest cats, okay.
Course was no exception. I love these as a kid, and it's kind of amazing because even though I personally drifted away from the series as I grew up, I'd occasionally hear rumors of some insane and unhinged fandom moments, and it got me wondering what's been happening to the series in recent years. Well, it turns out a lot, and the amount of insane, convoluted twists and turns in this franchise is truly something incredible, from fans forcing authors to quit to something called Ballgate, which is just as insane as it sounds. So
wait, Ballgate?
In this video,
what?
I'm going to try my best to break down the convoluted history, its incredible and at times unhinged fan base, and where it's all at now to understand whatever happened to the Warrior Cats. Hi everyone, my name is Otto, and welcome to Exits Examined. We'll be
Hi.
exploring series, franchises, and more after their prime time has seemingly come to an end. If that sounds good to you, there's a like and subscribe button below. Okay, so there's a metric ton of stuff to get into with this franchise, and explaining the series to the unanointed
Power of
can be a bit of a
three. Omens
daunting
of the
task because
stars.
things can quickly
God of the
become insanely
clans.
convoluted and complicated. But the
Jeez.
basic premise is actually pretty simple. Warriors is a young adult book series written by multiple authors under the pseudonym Aaron Hunter and has sold over 70 million copies. It's essentially about warrior cats in the woods with their own codes, religion, and of course the most fun part are the clans. Thunder Clan, River Clan, Wind Clan, and Shadow Clan. Each of them has its own unique vibe, and I think it's a huge part of what makes this series so much fun to get into. So here's your Warrior Cats 101. Thunder Clan is the brave, noble type, so imagine a whole squad of cat Captain Americas. Then there's Shadow Clan, who's stealthy and mysterious, so basically an entire gang of cat Narutos, and kind of the bad boys slash I can fix 'em types. River Clan are basically the Olympic swimmers, and Wind Clan cats are super fast and have a bunch of agility in fights. And oh yeah, there are a lot of cat fights. Speaking of that, there is this kind of fascinating duality in the series, because while it was geared towards younger readers, it delves into at times shockingly dark territory. These aren't friendly little scuffles between kitties, the battles are absolutely metal, with cats getting straight up eviscerated, sometimes in graphic detail, and that's honestly just scratching the surface. Fortunately, to avoid these bloodbaths, they do have a type of cat UN, and from time to time, all the clan leaders will meet to discuss news and grievances. Aside from this, the clans are united in their shared cat religion, which, oh yeah, cat religion. This is called Star Clan, basically spirit cat ancestors who say they will watch over the living cats and are kind of a guiding force, even if a lot of times they are maybe not exactly the most helpful. Basically,
I mean, given the whole, like, joke of, like, cats having 9 lives, I guess if cats were to have a religion, it being some form of ancestor worship, I guess that makes sense. Because, if you can have, rabbit religion and Watership Down, why can't the cats have their religion? Oh my god, could you imagine if these took place in the same universe? Oh my god, what a crossover.
they'll communicate through the clans through signs and prophecies, but many times these prophecies are super vague and indirectly end up with a ton of cats being killed.
In the way you think is best. Yeah, I can definitely see how that could be taken badly.
Whoops. Anyway, the culture is also centered around the Warrior Code, basically the Cat Constitution, a set of laws that emphasize honor, loyalty, and bravery. But these frequently cause their own set of problems. Like,
really?
with one of the laws being essentially don't ever question the leader, which, yeah, you can imagine how that goes. Speaking of leaders, yeah, there's different roles in your catocracy. Fortunately, the cat society is pretty easy to break down. You got the leader, who is, of course, the big boss. And if we're continuing my Game of Thrones reference, basically they are the heads of house. But they also get 9 lives from the Star Clan for being special. Then you got the...
Wait, so they legitimately have 9 lives? That's not a joke. Okay, sure. Oh, wait. Oh, okay. I'm looking, and they even have 9 stars. Okay.
Deputy, which is the leader's right hand, who organizes patrols, makes sure everyone is doing their job, and occasionally, does the whole scheming advisor thing. The rank and file of Cat Society is made up of kits, the adorable furballs, cats in training, and warriors, who are the backbone of the clan. Another important thing to mention here is that as you progress through the ranks, your cat name will change to reflect this. There are also elders who are essentially in cat retirement, and pregnant cats who are called queens, which I think we should adopt in the human world as well. You also have your medicine cats, which are kind of like a mix between cat doctor and cat shaman. Now, importantly, it's not just cats in this world. There are humans, rats, badgers, and even mountain lions, all with their own motivations.
Oh, okay. So is this going to be the whole thing where it's only house cats? As soon as you get, like, non-domesticated felines, that's when, like, stuff happens where... Okay. Is that the reason why you generally don't say that, like, stuff like mountain lions or like panthers or tigers, they don't have 9 lives because they don't practice ancestor worship? Is that what's going on here?
There's also street cats, but they're not really a clan because they don't believe in the cat religion or follow the code. And of course, there are house cats, which are referred to as kitty pets. Now, this is where the very first series starts, with Rusty the house cat deciding to leave his luxurious life and join ThunderClan in the wild. Now, you may have noticed I said first series, which may be confusing because how can there be a series within a series?
I mean, I literally just looked it up. There are several arcs, several of which look like they're still being planned, or just, one at the very least. But still, I mean, several multi-book arcs in the same series that's still going on. That is nuts.
Well, to say Warrior Cats is enormous would be quite the understatement. Depending on how you count the books, there's over 90 in total, and it's kind of cute when people complain about long book series like The Wheel of Time, and then the Warrior Cats fandom is over here looking like Dirty Harry. Now, don't be stressed out if you haven't read them.
Oh, there's manga as well, okay.
The words of Gandalf, there are few who can. But just out of the sake of morbid curiosity, let's break down the series. Now, there are 9 series called arcs in total, and each of these books usually around 300 pages, and these include Warriors The Prophecy Begins, which was the first and released in 2003, then The New Prophecy, Power of Three, Omen of the Stars, Dawn of the Clans, which is a prequel and chronologically the first, A Vision of Shadows, The Broken Code, A Starless Clan, and finally Changing Skies, which is currently in the works and set to release. Okay, easy so far, right? Well, hold on, because outside the main arcs, there are also these things called super editions. Now, I had never heard of something being called a super edition before, but basically they are standalone novels that delve deeper into the lives of individual characters from the series. They're longer than most of the books in the main arcs, and while not always essential, they provide some unique insights and perspectives. Okay, so we have series and standalone novels, but like with everything in the Warriors universe, it's not that simple because we're actually not even halfway done yet. There are also novellas, which are standalone stories that focus on individual characters and backstories. Now,
I would assume that they're a lot shorter than the super editions.
Might be thinking, hey, isn't that literally what I just said about super editions? Well, yes, that's right. But the key difference lies in their length. While super editions are typically 400 to 600 pages long, novellas are significantly shorter. Now, if you are still hungry for another sweet hit of fluffy warrior goodness, you don't have to worry because there are also field guides, which are basically reference books that give you extra info about the character and the world. And on top of all of that, there's a pretty large amount of short stories, and a number of these can be found online for free, so I'll link some of these below. So trust me, I know that can sound pretty intimidating for someone just wanting to dip their toes into the Warriors' water for the first time, and it can be kind of hard to know where to start, but it's actually pretty simple. Just read them in order, because otherwise you'll be extremely lost.
You gotta give them credit. There are so many franchises and series out there that after like years and years, like they get so complicated, and it's like, oh, you should read this one first before you start this, and then this, and then this before you get to the actual first book written in the series. No, with this, it's literally just follow the publishing order. That's it. I mean, props to the authors for keeping it, simple like that.
The main series is basically just one long timeline split into different story arcs with different protagonists.
Apart from the one section that was actually a prequel, but you get to that when you get to that.
And the Warriors Cat Wiki, which thank God this exists, also has a link listing every release in chronological order for those of you who want to read every single piece of Warrior media ever and get a gold star. The themes and the plots of the books themselves are actually pretty wild. We've got everything from forbidden love triangles to ancient prophecies, deforestation, cat superpowers, cat atheism, which, by the way, cat atheism never made sense to me because, StarClan is real, their leaders have 9 lives.
It could literally be not like, oh, I believe that they don't exist. It could be, I don't believe in them, because as we've seen, their leadership sucks. So it could literally be a loss of faith in your gods, essentially, because they exist. They just are horrible at their jobs.
But I think at the end of the day, the world and the books have an overall hopeful tone and just enjoyable reads with a ton of really fun characters. Speaking of the characters, with each new series, there was a host of new ones, and the sheer amount of cats can be a little overwhelming. So much so that even the authors can't seem to keep tabs on them, to the extent that they occasionally even forget which ones they've killed off.
It's times like these you need to get an Excel spreadsheet and organize this sort of stuff, or get a corkboard and like put red lines through characters. This is the kind of stuff you can't be disorganized on.
Now, this makes more sense if you remember that I mentioned Aaron Hunter is not one author, but rather a collective. So Aaron Hunter is a team of writers and editors who have collaborated on the Warrior series over time. They've always been pretty open about this, and it's pretty simple to figure out which author wrote which book. They're collectively called the Aarons, but probably the most important Aaron is Vicky Holmes, who basically creates and outlines the plots for each story arc and book. Then, two other Aarons would actually fill in the details and write the books themselves. For various reasons, which I'll mention later, Vicky Holmes has since stepped away from the series in 2017, but even without her, the Warriors Cat train is still going strong. Apparently, in the beginning though, it all started when publisher HarperCollins approached Vicky Holmes with the idea of writing a fantasy series with feral cats, but Vicky wasn't initially sold on the concept. I must confess I wasn't very keen at first because I don't read fantasy, and although I love all animals, I'm more of a dog person. But once I started working with the characters, I realized I could give them more human issues. Once I stopped thinking of the series as fantasy and just let the characters take me where they wanted, everything got much easier and the story started to tell themselves. Now, in large part because of this at times mess of authors, there are some issues with the series. The sheer number of books means that the quality can be a bit up and down. Sometimes the plots feel recycled, and it feels like it's almost missing an overall editor. But it's safe to say that the writing isn't always the best. So what I mean by this is that the world is huge, which is great, but sometimes it feels like it collapses under its own weight. And this size means errors are bound to happen. Now, you might think, well, what's the harm in a few minor mistakes, like typos here and there? But the issue is that some of these are pretty major oversights. I brought this up earlier, but stories have characters who should already be dead and are just mentioned casually to be alive. Some characters are accidentally written to be both somehow adults and kittens in the same book, or important backstory details get completely forgotten. And it's frustrating when you get attached to a character only for the authors to treat them with major inconsistencies, and it's gotten to the point where it's just kind of a fact of life for the fanbase. Then there's the issue of overexposure, with some characters receiving way more attention than others. I'm looking at you, Mapleshade. And pacing problems can make certain books feel like a slog. Some books or guides, sometimes even Redcon stuff, and it can all get pretty confusing, and that's a bummer for fans who have been with the series since the start of it. Then, of course, is the metric ton of characters I mentioned. Like, seriously, I never
family
thought they would be a
trees
thing as too many cats, but yeah. A lot of them just kind of show up for a bit, then disappear, and it seems like even the authors can't be bothered with the details. A prime example of this is Dovewing's eye color. Throughout a single book, her eyes are described as different shades, sparking endless debate among fans and landing the issue its own dedicated page on the Warrior Cats wiki. Speaking of the fandom, it's a mass...
Okay, you know, I'm starting to feel, familiar feelings here. I mean, so, the series inconsistencies, I swear, is this just the book version of the FNAF games? Where, like, it seemed, except, well, I mean, with FNAF, it was always very much, like, it's always been built on a shaky foundation, and it's just been, like, blocks put on blocks put on blocks. On this, I mean, it's very much where, like, the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, even if they're both holding the same piece of paper. What? What is this?
Massive part of what makes Warriors what it is today. They're the super passionate, super talented, and sometimes super unhinged grease that keeps this franchise rolling. Out of all the series I've
super
covered,
unhinged
Warriors easily
grease,
has the most vocal and active community I've ever seen. And when you take a step back, it's kind of fascinating. I mean, how could this 20-year-old book series about cats ignite such an active community of people from all over the world? And it really makes you wonder why Warriors has such incredible staying power. Now, of course, everyone will have their own reasons and thoughts, but I think a large part of it comes down to the sheer amount of characters, clans, and books in the series.
I mean, it could also just be the whole thing of, the internet's attraction to cats in general. I mean, granted, nowadays it's kind of been tamped down a little bit. But, I mean, I know for literal decades, it was, you put a cat video online and it would just absolutely explode because, cats.
Basically, because of how huge this world is, everyone can find something to love and hate. So in school, when kids played Warriors in recess and jumped around shouting about what clans they were, everyone could have a different character or clan. And I think it's really fun to have a world where people can use their imagination and really step into the franchise and pick and choose and make it their own. And it's all wrapped in this edgy, dark, but optimistic world, and with the icing of it being about cats. And who doesn't like cats? But regardless of the reason why this fandom is so huge, it's undeniable that they have done some remarkable things together. The most common is, of course, the fan art. From stunning digital
fan art's always a thing in every fandom.
Duels, scroll through Reddit or DeviantArt and you'll find entire galleries of these. And seriously, some of these are amazing and really interesting takes on characters and cover art. And over the years, the community has been a great place to share work and encourage young artists. It's not all sunshine and catnip though. There have been some bumps in the road, like the infamous Clover Kit scandal. In a nutshell, a young fan posted art of their own character, which sparked both ridicule and a massive outpouring of support. Unfortunately, the attention was just overwhelming for the kid who made the art in the first place. But hiccups aside, the Warrior Cats community is largely welcoming, friendly, and bursting with talent.
Oh God, it's always the OCs that do it. I swear, it's always the OCs. I remember when murder drones first started, the Reddit. I mean, especially after the first or second episode, yeah, there was so much fan art of people making their own murder drone OCs, and it's Designation Z, Designation Y. That was certainly an era, I gotta say that.
The official Warriors website even features fan creations, which is just great to see.
Oh,
There's
lovely.
also fan-made animations, which I'll bring up later, but while you're making your fan drawings, you can even listen to fan-made soundtracks, which is the first time I've ever seen this be a thing in a fandom, and it's pretty great.
Sir, have you ever heard of Undertale before? Though, I mean, granted, this predates Undertale by a fair margin, so I guess they could have come first, so yeah, never mind, I retract my statement.
There are original songs and soundtracks from pretty much every genre you can think of. We're talking raps, musicals, and even country songs, with entire channels dedicated to it. And even though the books have their own issues, fans have rolled up their sleeves and stepped in to fix that problem. Fanfic is a huge part of the community, and there are countless stories that expand upon the world, characters, and plotline. There is probably a fanfiction for anything you can think of. And while a lot of these deal with fan-made characters, there are also hidden gems that stay true to the source material. The quality can be really good, and I'll share some of these down below in the description. But if all of this still is not enough for you, don't worry, because it doesn't even stop there. Fans made plushies, masks, comics, podcasts, fan websites, and it just goes back to what I was saying about there really is something here for everyone. And it's just so wholesome to see all the different talents of the community. But of course, everything goes both ways, and what comes up must come down.
Yeah.
Along with the intense fandom comes intense, internet-fueled, mind-boggling drama. Although some of it is warranted, I will say.
Eye-color discourse.
Debates about cat genetics to the possibility of rabies outbreaks within the clans, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. I've mentioned the Clover...
Oh God, yeah, that's right. I guess with the apart from I'm forgetting his name, whoever the character of the first series was, the house cat who left, they're all feral cats, so there's the good chance that most of them wouldn't have any shots, and if they did get sick, they wouldn't unless a human or something saw them and captured them to go to a vet and to be treated, which actually, that's the thing, thinking about it, I gotta wonder, how do they hide all of their activities from humans? Because he did say that one of the topics of one of the storylines and stuff was deforestation, and I highly doubt that it was the cats cutting down the trees. Unless they were, which just leads to my previous point of how do they hide their activity so much?
Clover Kit controversies, Dovewing's eye color, and there's even this whole thing. I've mentioned the Clover Kit controversies, Dovewing's eye color, and there's even this whole thing about how Firestar's, well, let's just say anatomy was depicted in certain fan art, more affectionately known as Ballgate. Now,
okay. That's what Ballgate meant. Okay.
I could go on and on about this, but other YouTubers already have, and this video is already massive as it is, so for those of you who are interested, feel free to do the research on your own, but be warned, it's a rabbit hole, and once you go down, there is no turning back. So, sure, the insane history of the fandom dramas can make you question your sanity sometimes,
The
but
horse
it's
is not-
important to remember what's at the core here, a shared love for a book series. Even with the occasional downsides, there's something truly endearing about this community. And the authors actively engage with the fandom through Q&As, characters' names referencing fan usernames, and even essays explaining the series' intricacies. One of the most touching moments was
That's
in
good.
2008, 10-year-old Emmy Cherry and her parents tragically lost their lives in a tornado. Emmy apparently loved the Warrior series, and Vicky Holmes was touched by the story and shared it on fan sites. The fans in turn gave Warrior names to Emmy and her family, and Vicky in turn gave them cameos in the books. And later there'd even be a play written about them. And it's stories like this that really make you realize the power of the community when it comes together.
Warrior Cats play? What? I don't. Was this ever like actually acted out? Like, did they basically have it like Cats the musical?
But of course, fan interaction has its downsides. Criticisms have come up regarding female representation, relationships, and even ableism. For example, some characters can't become warriors due to injuries, and in some arcs, female characters can arguably be designated as side characters or solely as love interests. And these issues still spark debate amongst fans.
Which, I mean, given the fact that it's seemingly all of the, the authors were women, I mean, yeah, okay.
Thankfully, the authors seem pretty receptive to feedback. Recent books show a clear effort to incorporate these critiques, and this really just again shows the power of the fanbase. However, it definitely has not all been smooth sailing, with the infamous Sue debacle adding fuel to the fire. Basically, to give a
Sue
very
debacle?
brief rundown of this dumpster fire, in 2016, Vicky Holmes made a post about how she was entrusting a quote-unquote superfan, Sue Susan, to answer questions in the community, and that Sue's word was pretty much canon. Her first editions were pretty unoffensive, but then she started to make changes that some felt were a bit fanficky or far-fetched, and the fandom quickly turned against her. It turned into this whole mess with a ton of ugly back and forth. There was a lot of bullying of Sue and false reporting on things like Facebook, even though some of her contributions have been made semi-canon on the official website. Eventually, Vicky kind of backtracked and said, wait a minute, Sue's word was not canon, and following that, Vicky left the Warriors franchise, apparently due to a mix of reasons, leaving many fans heartbroken. However, she has made occasional appearances in the past few years and participated in contests and tours. But this isn't even the only case of the fandom turning on one of the authors. They literally made one of the Aarons leave. Again, extremely long and controversial story short, Gillian Phillip was a self-proclaimed TERF, which means trans exclusionary radical feminist.
Wait, so she used the term herself? Okay.
So basically a female who rejects the position that trans women are women. Basically, she put, I stand with J.K. Rowling in her Twitter bio during that whole thing. Now, a large part of the Warriors fandom is LGBT, and this resulted in a ton of arguments between Gillian and fans, and this went over about as well as you might expect. During this whole fiasco, HarperCollins quickly distanced itself from Phillip and
Wait, she's also a trucker now? What?
And eventually dropped her entirely. Okay, so let's take a quick break from all the drama and now turn to the world of Warrior Cat adaptations. And if you thought this would be any less convoluted or generally chaotic, then you clearly have not been paying attention. But let's start simple. The official spinoffs are Seekers, which is Warriors but Bears.
Okay, never mind.
Survivors, which is Warriors but Dogs. Bravelands, which is Warriors but in Africa. And most interestingly of all, in my opinion, is Bamboo Kingdom, which is Warriors but about pandas. And as a bonus, it's not an official spin-off, but there's also Wings of Fire. It was written by one of the Aarons and has a ton of similarities, but is of course about dragons. Now, full transparency, I have not read the
Sure,
spin-offs.
okay.
I know, fake fan, but by all accounts, the spin-offs seem to be pretty positive, though not anywhere near as popular as Warriors.
Which actually, how's that last one work? Because, like, I know in a lot of media, like, it's either like a flip of the coin where the dragons are depicted as, like, purely monstrous or very intelligent. Or sometimes even the ones that are, like, monstrous are intelligent, so the fact that, they can speak with humans. So how does that work out in a world that's based around feral cats, or, like, mirrored off of them at the very least?
Now, I'm just hoping we can start a petition for Warriors, but with rats, because these cute little guys were absolutely villainized in the original series, and it's a crime. Speaking of petitions, it's time to talk about the absolute drama with the movie, or lack thereof. Now, for a long time, fans have been vocal in their want of a movie, but unfortunately fans would have to wait and wait. Until on October 20th, 2016, Victoria Holmes announced that Alibaba Pictures had bought the production rights for a film adaptation, and at first, things seemed to be promising. A producer from
this
Harry
is going to
Potter
be one
was
of
brought on
those.
board, and
It's going to be one of those ones that's been in production hell for basically ever. Oh no, poor thing.
even a movie poster was made. Then there were a few more spouts of news in 2018, then nothing. And more nothing. But then, after years of silence, in 2024, it was announced that Coolibee Group signed a deal to create an animation of Warriors, which is pretty exciting, but we probably shouldn't get our hopes up until something more concrete comes out. But hey, at least there's been news within the past year.
I mean, if the FNAF movie has taught me anything, it has taught me that anything is possible when it comes to these adaptations.
He did later confirm, after the current deal was announced, that the Alibaba one fell through. Although looking at the Coolibee Group's current works is pretty interesting, because these include a 17-season show called Heartland, which is, quote, Canada's longest running 1-hour drama. So make of that what you will.
Heartland. Where have I heard that before? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, granted, I've probably seen advertisements for it at one point or another, because I recognize the name. Huh. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to look into that.
But even though there is a severe lack of warriors in the TV/movie space, don't worry, because like with everything
Fan
else in this universe,
animations.
the fandom will roll up their sleeves and do
it themselves. Yes,
so these
of
include
course.
maps called multiple animator projects, where fans basically band together to make animations for a soundtrack, and some of these are amazing, and these include The Five Giants or StarClan's Chosen. Animation just seems to be a huge part of the fandom, and it's truly impressive the amount of work and dedication the community has put in here, and there are countless examples of full episode series like SSS Cats, which recreated the first few chapters of the first books, and Amelia B, who made this crazy 90s style intro, and Little Dragon Studios, which did a 3D version of Into the Wild, complete with voice acting, and it's mind-boggling
nice.
how much work must have gone into these. Although, interestingly enough, some of these, like the one done by Little Dragon Studios, has been requested to cease and desist by the authors, and the line is kind of tricky, with the official website saying that, quote, they reserve the right to request that you stop sharing content if they consider that it oversteps into copyright or trademark infringement. But I'm assuming that this probably has something to do with the upcoming animation. Okay, so aside from the movie and animation,
okay.
we also have graphic novels in the universe. Or are they mangas? So this was a point of complete confusion for me, because the official Warriors website currently lists these as mangas, with the one exception of Prophecies Begin, which is listed as a graphic novel. But the wiki lists all of these as graphic novels. Now, I think the entire reason they were called mangas is a bit confusing in the first place, because they aren't in the typical Japanese style or read right to left. But I think in large part this is because they were originally made by Tokyopop, and this has sparked a ton of debate in the fandom as well. With the rise of graphic novels, I think the team realized that the manga label is confusing, so with the newer ones like Prophecies, they're switching to calling them graphic novels. Anyway, I guess it's just semantics at the end of the day, but another fascinating nook and cranny of this franchise. All that aside, the ones I read were pretty enjoyable, but most of them are side stories, so not like required reading. But it's a joy to see the characters in a visual format. Now, a whole other part of the franchise franchise is the Warrior Games, with probably the largest being the Roblox game that might be the closest we have to an official
Of course it's a Roblox game!
listed on the Warrior Cats website. The game boasts decent graphics and is a major upgrade from the fever dream visuals of the older Roblox Warrior Cat titles, but it's definitely...
I swear, these people, like, the people that put so much effort into making Roblox games like this, like, you could choose, like, an actual game engine and stuff like, I swear these people.
Not without its problems. Roblox unfortunately doesn't have strict enforcement of roleplay rules except for the usual no swearing policy, and this can lead to messy roleplay experiences, with a lot of players not even understanding the Warrior code. Thankfully, the game helpfully includes the code in the menu, but enforcement remains an issue, so it can be kind of hard to roleplay when a bunch of people are just running around doing their own things. While the graphics are a step up, they can feel a bit strange too, and at times a little derpy, but it can be charming. If Roblox isn't your thing for any number of reasons, there's another project called Clans Divided, and it's been in development since 2018 and was an unofficial fan-made game. Currently, it looks like the creator might have abandoned this project sadly because not even all the elements that were planned have been finished. But as far as I know, it was only one person who made it, which is kind of amazing, honestly. And although it doesn't bear the official Warrior Cats name, Cattails is by all intents and purposes a Warrior Cat game, which originated as a Warriors fan game by Falcon Developments called Warrior Cats Untold Tales. And my favorite thing about this was looking at the comment section for the reviews, and one was, quote, "This game is for anyone who grew up obsessed with the Warrior Cats series, except the names are only half as long." But yeah, it's kind of like Stardew Valley meets the Warriors and is a cute little fleshed out experience. There's also Clan Jin, which is another fan-made game where you can make your entire clan and has this really cute pixelated looking charm. Then for all the OG heads, there is Warrior Cats, the original game on PC, which has kind of got Pokemon vibes, and you can still play it, but you do need an activation code, but these are still floating around in the world. Speaking of older titles, there was also New Prophecy Quest, which was a Flash game and as such is no longer available on the website. However, it is still playable in the Flashpoint archive, so you can relive your childhood. Now, there was a whole slew of these Flash games on the official website, including Warriors Match, Warriors Connection, Warriors Hunting Game, just to name a few. As far as modern official games on the website, they do exist, but they're not exactly high fidelity, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. There's Warrior Cats Medicine Mission, which is a free online game and surprisingly fun, and it's nice that they gave a spotlight to the Medicine Cats finally. And this one's not really a game, but there's also Warrior Cats Mini Maker, so you can make your own cat, and I had a ton of fun at making my edgelord of a cat. As far as unfinished projects, there was even work being done on an official MMO Warrior Cats Online, which honestly I would totally play a WoW style game where everyone is in different clans. Vicky Holmes herself even announced it in a newsletter in 2009, going as far as to send out surveys to fans, but it seems like it never panned out and just got stuck in development. Outside of video...
I mean, Grant, I've said before, I was not a fan of this series. Like, before this, I had only heard, like, passing mentions of it in other YouTube videos. But the fact that, like, you have such an expansive, not only universe, but fan base, and they've been starved of, like, the flourishes of a large fan base, like official games, a movie, and stuff like that. I can't help but feel sad for them.
Video games, there's playing cards and even a D&D inspired adventure game that was a bonus to some of the books. But it was a bit confusing to play, but it had things like character sheets and rule books, which are still on the website. And because literally everything has to have one, there was even a mobile app. But just like everything else in this franchise, it's not that simple because there's actually two. In 2011, the OG one was released, and it was basically a reference guide and trivia game, but it was later taken down. But don't fret, because in 2020, a mobile application version of the website, also known as Warrior Cats Hub, was published. But it's not really an app, it's more of a recreation of the website, which is a pretty interesting choice. I'm personally not sure why someone would download an app of a site when you can just use your browser, but if someone can explain, please let me know. And in the meantime,
have it on the go!
To another confusing thing about this franchise, I guess. At the end of the day, there's just so much depth here, from the books themselves to the incredible fan creations I haven't even had time to go into, and it really speaks to the incredible staying power of the series. With over 20 years under its belt, you might expect the series to start losing popularity, especially considering the mixed reception to some of the recent book releases like the 2023 reprint of The Ultimate Guide. But the fanbase remains strong, and the series shows no signs of slowing down. New books and graphic novels continue to be published, events are still happening, merch is still being made, and the television adaptation is finally looking to be on the horizon. Well, maybe anyway. And it's hard to imagine this happening unless there were still people interested in it. It is kind of fascinating because The Warriors was originally only intended by Vicky Holmes to span the original 6 books, but it's ballooned into this unstoppable cultural cat juggernaut. It's true that people have left or moved on from the series, but it seems like this is balanced by new generations getting into it. Don't get me wrong.
Again, it's the weirdest thing. This super long book franchise about like warrior cats. Why does its franchise story, why does the story of its like community and franchise mimic that of FNAF so heavily? Why is that?
The writing and the series as a whole has had its ups and downs, but I think it's only natural for something as long running as the 20+ years here, and this is reflected in how the landscape of the internet has changed too. Instead of online forums, people now use Discord or Reddit, and it's only natural for something to change and evolve as the years go on. And when you think about it, I don't think it's a coincidence that The Warriors has been so massively popular over the years. Aside from it just being a fun read with a well-defined world, it goes back to my point earlier about how the world, fandom, and books here are so massive that there's space for everyone to truly make it their own, from making animation to writing content for their own MCs or just reading the books. I think this was helped along with the series exploding during basically the perfect time back in the early 2000s, where so many people were looking for the next big book series after Harry Potter. Even if the books weren't exactly literary masterpieces, they were further propelled by the fandom itself, which has to be one of the largest and most passionate ever. And they kind of perpetually propel it forward and put energy back into the franchise with new drama, fan works, and just keeping it in the spotlight. And it's great that the authors have tried their best to embrace the fandom. They're constantly holding events and competitions, like a recent one that Barnes & Noble held, to school competitions where students can name their own characters. And they even have an entire section on the website
because there weren't enough characters already.
But all that aside, I think the biggest and most important reason why this franchise has stuck around through thick and thin is, well, it's about cats. And I guess people really, really, really like cats. But
literally, what did I say at the literal beginning of this video? The internet loves cats.
For whatever reason, Warrior Cats is still going strong, and I for one am looking forward to the new books, fan creations, and inevitable drama in the future. Thanks so much for watching.
I mean, I knew I was going to be getting into something weird when I started watching these videos, from everything I have heard of this franchise. But I had no idea that it was a franchise that's been so long running, or how deep it was. I mean, I wasn't going to say or how obsessive it could be, but at the same time, I've been in enough online fandoms that I kind of know that's just sort of the default state that a lot of online fandoms go to. I don't know if I'm going to, actually read the books. I might, find an audiobook and listen to it when I have the time, just to, get a taste of it. But, man, that's weird. Oh, God, that's so weird. So, yeah, that'll be it for now. So, of course, as always, original videos linked in the description if you haven't seen it. For some reason, corner video will lead to my Let's Play of the day. And, yeah, I hope you guys liked it. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you have not. And I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.